Good evening. I'm John Olson, and I'm joined here tonight by CEO of Housing Hope, Fred Safstrom. Fred, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. Thank you, John, for being here again and once again being our MC. We so much appreciate that. And for those of you that are watching, thank you for joining us. I look forward to this unique evening here together.
Tonight, we're here at Housing Hope's Kindred Kitchen. It's in downtown Everett on Broadway, and it's our first ever virtual stone soup. We're here tonight because of COVID-19. Fred, I'm sure that's impacted your organization a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Very much so, John. This is an extraordinary circumstance that is affecting everyone in profound ways, and no less Housing Hope and our work. Many of our activities we've had to curtail or temporarily shut down, but we have remained committed to serving our families in creative ways, in safe ways. I think the very best news right now is that all of our staff has been safe. We've had no confirmed cases of COVID among staff, and only one among our residents, and she is doing well, isolated in her home. So we're thankful for that. But rest assured, these times are tougher on no one that someone is living in poverty with limited resources. So our residents need our assistance today more than they ever have.
Well, our goal tonight remains the same as if we were gathered in person. We're here to raise money to support Housing Hope. We do that through sponsorships and individual donations, so let's start by thanking our sponsors. We have several event sponsors tonight. At the leadership corporate partner level, we have the Boeing Company, Heritage Bank, Kirtley Cole Associates, Master Builders Association of King and Snohomish Counties, Pacific Crest Savings Bank, UBS, WSECU. At the Champions of Hope sponsor level, we have the Everett Clinic, Group Health Foundation, Northwest Plus Credit Union. And at the Patrons of Hope sponsor level, we have Brent Planning Solutions, Enterprise Community Investment, Fluke, Kaiser Permanente, Mountain Pacific Bank, and Providence Regional Medical Center. Thanks to all of our event sponsors. We would also like to thank and recognize our premier corporate partners. These organizations support Housing Hope and HopeWorks annually with gifts of $25,000 or more. These include the Bank of America Charitable Foundation, BECU, the Boeing Company, Bonneville Environmental Foundation, Kirtley Cole Associates, Northwest Business Development Association, Windermere Foundation, and the Murdoch Trust. You can join these corporations by giving tonight. We have a blue button on the website that allows you to give a one-time gift. You can structure a gift out over a 6 or 12-month period. You can make a pledge using this button. However you want to give your gift, we'll be there to help support that. For our first portion of the evening, we're going to go to Kindred Kitchen chef Colin. Colin's joined us here, and we're going to take a look at what he's got going on in the kitchen. Colin, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, John.
Tell us a little bit about the menu here at Kindred Kitchen.
Well, here at Kindred Kitchen, we have a locally sourced, organic as possible, all scratch-made in-house. It's known as a fast casual concept is what we like to call it. Hot, warm, delicious sandwiches, hot scratch-made soup, fresh salads, tossed to order, all that good stuff.
And tell me how you created that menu. Did you work with local growers or food suppliers, or how did you come up with the ultimate menu for the kitchen?
Well, we teamed up with a few different people. We teamed up with our local culinary advisors. We had a team based out of Portland, culinary options team, and we helped create a menu that just showcases the best out of what's from the Northwest.
Now tell us about this appetizer. I know that Fred's looking forward to this. Is that right, Fred?
I am. I've got a sneak peek that we're going to experience a braised beef, and I recall vividly, coming in here and visiting the kitchen before it was open. We just had the equipment installed, and here we had the first braised beef coming out of the oven.
All right, Colin, tell us about this appetizer.
All right, so here we have our beautiful rustic potato roll from Macrina Bakery down in Seattle. Our wonderful house-made horseradish spread. It's a cream cheese-based spread, which is just delicious and is gonna get real yummy in there. We have our house roasted and rubbed roast beef. Beautiful caramelized onions here that we're making again in-house. Some nice local organic arugula.
Hear that, Fred? Organic arugula.
Oh my gosh, my mouth is watering now.
Well, what's special or unique, Colin, about this kitchen?
What's special about this program here is it's a hands-on training program in our working kitchen. We have our interns here working and making your sandwiches. They're making your lattes, going out to our customers, and they're learning how every aspect of this kitchen works to be able to get out into the community and become successful for themselves.
Sounds good. Fred, I think the time has come. We get to taste this appetizer while Colin tells us a little bit about what's his favorite part of working here.
Okay, let's give this a try.
I think my favorite part of working in Kindred Kitchen is just that, is working with our wonderful interns who are just thriving and just wanting to become sponges of this knowledge that we're putting out and being hands-on with all of our product. I think that's the highlight of my day each and every day.
The roast beef here is terrific. They make a great roast beef sandwich down here at Kindred Kitchen. You got to get down here when it reopens and give one a try. Also, for each $250 donation or more, you'll be entered into a drawing for a $25 gift certificate right here at the kitchen. You can use the blue donate button on your screen to make that donation. So it's going to be great. You won't regret it. All right, it's time to move on to our speaker. Fred, have you ever written a New York Times bestseller?
Not yet, John.
Well, our speaker tonight has. She's Stephanie Land, and she's written a New York Times bestseller titled Made, Hard Work, Low Pay, and a Mother's Will to Survive. We're pleased to have her join us virtually, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy her remarks.
Hey there, my name is Stephanie Land, and thank you for having me to my very first virtual speech ever. I'm pretty excited, even though this is my third take. When we lived in the homeless shelter, I sat up late at night, long after my daughter Mia had gone to sleep. As the night stretched out before me, I tried to envision our future, our happy life. There would be a large yard of freshly cut green grass and a tree with a swing hanging from the branch. Our house wouldn't be terribly big, but large enough that Mia could run around in it, maybe with a dog, and build forts underneath the rungs of furniture. Mia would not only have her own room, but her own bathroom too. We'd have a guest room or an office where I could write. A real couch and a matching love seat. A garage. At the time, I thought if we only had those things, we would be happy. Around the time of my book Made's release, several people said that my fall into poverty began with an unexpected pregnancy. But I have a hard time seeing it that way. My daughter didn't learn to walk in a homeless shelter because I'd chosen to bring her into the world. She took those first steps on that dirty tiled floor because I'd just escaped an abusive relationship with a couple $100. Because my family had turned their backs on me, or couldn't help us. Because I simply couldn't find work. And because I couldn't find work, a grant for childcare wasn't obtainable. You see, I needed to obtain a job first that I could do while my daughter was at daycare before I'd get approved for that grant. Because most of the daycare centers who accepted that grant were open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The evening and weekend work, the restaurant work that I'd done through my 20s, was not an option. Without office skills or a college degree, and in the height of a recession-era job market, cleaning houses rose to the surface as the only job that I could do. But after months of working as a maid, I saw that most of my clients had these things that I had yearned for in those dark nights sitting up alone, and they did not seem to enjoy life any more than I did. Most of them seemed to work long hours, away from the homes they fought so hard to pay for. I began to pay attention to the items that cluttered their kitchen counters, the receipt for the rugs that were as expensive as my car, the the bill for the dry cleaner that could replace half my wardrobe. In contrast, I divided my hourly wages into 15-minute increments to add up how much of my physical work paid for the money it took just in gas to get to work in the first place. Most days I spent at least an hour. But my clients seemed to work long hours to pay for unused spaces, lavish cars, boats, and sofas that they kept covered with a sheet. They worked to pay the cleaning service they'd hired, who'd paid me just above minimum wage, to keep it all spotless, in place, and acceptable. While they paid for my work like some kind of magical cleaning fairy, I was anything but that, shuffling through their house like a nameless ghost. I even wore pairs of Carhartt cargo pants until they had holes in the knees, and they were unsightly enough that my boss told me to replace them. But my job offered me little money to spend on clothes, even for work. I worked through illnesses and brought my daughter to daycare when she was sick and should have been at home with me. My job offered no sick pay, no vacation days, no foreseeable increase in wage, and yet I begged to work more. Wages lost from missed work hours could rarely be made up, and if I missed too many, I risked being fired. My car's reliability was vital, since a broken hose, a faulty thermostat, or even a flat tire could throw us off, knock us backward, and send us teetering, falling back toward homelessness again. I relied on government assistance to survive. Childcare grants, food stamps, Medicaid, utility assistance, and even gas vouchers were absolutely vital and made it possible to use my limited income for rent, because the rent always ate first. There were days in the month before the food stamp money was replenished that I went to bed hungry or ate very little. After paying bills, I often had no more than $20 left for the month. No matter how hard I worked, it never felt like it was enough, or that I was enough. We lived and we survived in that careful imbalance. This was our unwitnessed existence, as I polished another's to make theirs appear perfect. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, this was the reality for millions of workers in America, struggling to survive on minimum wage. And now these invisible workers are faced with the most dire of circumstances. It's all based on this myth that we have in this country, that if you work hard, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you'll make it. To those who believe that myth, they also believe that if you're not making it, you're simply not working hard enough. But the math just doesn't add up when we're still fighting for 15. And estimates say a single parent would need to make at least $30 an hour just to make ends meet, or work 140 hours a week at a minimum wage job. For those who turn to the government for support, there's an air of mistrust and judgment. The stigma surrounding those who use safety net programs is that those people don't work. But in applying for government assistance, I had to not only constantly prove that I was working, but that I wasn't squirreling away money somewhere or even driving a nice vehicle. My total assets were not allowed to be more than a few $1,000s. Even a 50-cent pay increase could mean I'd no longer qualify for child care or food to feed my child. For the 22 million who have just lost their jobs due to the pandemic, many will not qualify for food stamps due to asset limits. If they do, they will only be able to receive benefits for 3 months unless they meet the hourly work requirements of 80 hours a month. This whole aid application process alone seemed designed to discourage people from even trying. Paperwork was often dozens of pages thick and required access to a computer with a printer and internet connections. Little things like mandatory appointments with caseworkers in the middle of the workday could present an impossible hurdle. So I've known that I've wanted to be a writer since I was 10 years old. For 7 years, I scraped by as I worked my way through college in pursuit of that dream. but every time my car broke down or I lost a day of work, I felt incredibly guilty for pursuing an education, especially an art degree. I felt like our life didn't afford me this notion of being a writer. And the government didn't really seem to approve of it either. The hours that I spent in class or doing homework did not count toward those required work hours to receive benefits. So as a full-time student, working 15 hours a week with a child over 6 years old, I was denied food stamps, punished for fighting to better our lives and my ability to support my daughter. The truth is that for those living in the margins, working day and night to survive, there is often no real path out of poverty. The welfare cliff is too high. The obstacles are simply too great. The system is too broken. In writing Made, I hoped the book would change the stigmas that surround single mothers, especially those living in poverty. The stigmas that say we somehow deserve hardship because of the terrible decisions that we made to get us there. I hope people see how hard we work to make ends meet, and how fiercely we love our kids, how much we struggle to be enough while the government scolds us, telling us we're becoming dependent on things that they call handouts, but we call means to survive. I hope that even though it's just me speaking right now, you'll begin to notice the millions of other single parents, domestic workers, and those who are struggling so hard just to get by. The invisible housekeepers and doormen you used to brush by on your way out of the hotel. The janitors in airport bathrooms who are now deemed the essential workers. The cab drivers. These people work to make our lives easier. That's their job, is to make our lives easier. And yet we are failing them by not giving them a living wage, not allowing them to support their families while we literally hand our children to them, or used to, hand them at daycare centers, asking them to support ours. I hope those listening to my experiences today begin to realize the countless of other stories just like it that still need to be told. Even though my book is about basically the gritty work of cleaning houses and struggling to survive, to me it has always been a story about a mother wanting what's best for her child. After I turned in the final draft for Made, I took Mia, who's now almost 13, out to celebrate. And we started by getting our hair cut. The hairdresser is a friend of mine, and at one point she stepped back and said, "Just think of all the work that you've put into this. You've basically been writing this book since Mia was born." Afterward, as Mia and I were walking to dinner, she was quiet for a few minutes, which is pretty rare. And then she said, "Is that why my middle name is Story, Mom? Because you were writing a book about me?" And I said, "No, your middle name is Story because your dad didn't want that to be your first name," which, now that I think about it, was good because you would have ended up with the name Storyland. But the truth is her middle name came from a quote that I saw in a John Steinbeck museum right after I found out that I was pregnant with her. As you're leaving, there's a quote painted on the wall that says, "If a story is not about the hearer, he will not listen. And here I make a rule. A great and interesting story is about everyone, or it will not last." As human beings, we are all part of a much bigger story, but we have to look each other in the eye. We must see each other. I truly believe that the only way we'll see change in this country is by listening to not only stories like mine, but ones from people who have experienced systemic poverty and systemic racism. If we can somehow start to remove shame from struggle, we'll start to see how many of us are fighting in our own way. My story does have a happy ending, but that doesn't mean that I went from welfare to work. I found this wild kind of success that most only dream about, that I dreamt about, but totally didn't believe it would ever happen to me. I am so honored to be here and to help put a different sort of face on poverty and to be a voice for an invisible population of people who too often go unheard. I hope that is the part of my story and the part of our story that lasts. Thank you so very much.
Stephanie's story is real life. It's not numbers, it's not politics, but it's the experience that she had that many of our residents have the same. Unfortunately and sadly, her experience would be so much more difficult were she going through that today. You see, at the time, she was paying $550 a month for a studio apartment in Mount Vernon. That same apartment today would be $1,000. To afford a $1,000 apartment is more than minimum wage would allow. For someone working full-time at minimum wage, paying $1,000 plus utilities for an apartment would take more than 50% of their gross income. That simply does not leave enough money remaining for other normal expenses like food, utilities, insurance, transportation. And then the extraordinary expense comes along, whether it's a broken down car or an unexpected medical expense, and there is simply no money remaining. And that is if you're working full time. And many, like Stephanie, working full time is simply not attainable. Housing Hope now has 541 apartment units where we are serving 541 very low income households. This past year, we opened this building, Hope Workstation 2, and Station Place here with 65 new residential apartment units. Next year, we'll add 60 units in Smoky Point. The following year, 45 units in Everett, and the year after that, 60 units in South County. With your assistance, and only with your assistance, we will add a new project every year, thereby enabling us to serve more families like Stephanie's. Everyone agrees a safe, affordable place to live is the foundation upon which hope can be rekindled. Hope that a better future lies ahead. Hope that your children can grow up healthy and happy. And hope that you can escape poverty. Housing Hope restores hope for families like Stephanie's. But while hope is necessary, it is not sufficient. Housing Hope restores hope through affordable housing, but does so much more in helping our families to increase life skills, increase parenting skills, increase education, and ultimately to increase earned income. At Tomorrow's Hope Child Development Center, we are so proud that to be so far along the path towards becoming a licensed therapeutic center. We will be only the third therapeutic center in the state of Washington. Our children right here will be receiving the very best care available anywhere in the state. We are so proud of this, and our children deserve nothing less. At HopeWorks, we are providing job training for persons that want to work, but they have no job skills and no employment experience. Here, we are providing a bridge between long-term unemployment and a future in private sector employment. I want to introduce you to one of our former residents, Mel. Let's listen to her story.
My name's Mel. I'm a Housing Hope graduate. Housing Hope gave me hope, for one. It also gave, because I was a single mom when my daughter was born, and it gave me and her a chance to get started on the right foot. It also gave me an opportunity to go to college and not have to worry about being able to pay rent. I got 2 degrees while living in Housing Hope, and so it gave me everything, all the path that I needed to get on, all because Housing Hope gave me a chance and gave me a stable place to live and a way to support myself and my daughter. If it wasn't for Housing Hope, I don't know where me and my daughter would have ended up. Before I got the call that I was going to get housing, I was just newly in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And my daughter actually had been previously in CPS care, and she was placed with my mom. And then my mom passed away right after that. And that's when I got the call that we were going to get housing. So it gave me all the hope that I needed to keep on the path that I was on. I'd only about 6 months clean when we received housing. So things had already been challenging enough. And being a single mom also, and a young single mom, getting the Housing Hope call was just a blessing for me in so many ways. I had spent a lot of years being hopeless and not feeling good about myself and knowing that I wasn't doing the right things. And then especially with my mom passing away, because she was also a single mother. So I had regained some hope, but getting housing definitely gave me the hope that I needed and the push that we needed to go farther and to meet my goals and my potential. It made me feel like I could do anything, because now I had like the main piece, the first piece for a lot of people is having housing that's stable, that they can afford, and then they can put all the other pieces together. So it definitely gave me drive and determination, and I felt supported and that I could make it no matter what. So the 18 months was just in what they used to call transitional housing. Then I had Section 8 for several years after that. But then when I met my husband and we were getting ready to get our store, we knew that it was time for someone else to have the opportunity. So we were happy to give up my voucher to someone else so they could have it. We have 3 children. Our daughter Hayla's 13, our son Cyrus is 3, and our baby Willow just turned 2. We own the Arlington Grocery Outlet, which we've been there for almost 5 years. Grateful to be a part of the community in Arlington. We had an employee actually that lives in a Housing Hope complex, and she worked for us for quite a while. And we've also hired lots of people that couldn't necessarily get jobs other places because they had something on their criminal history. And so we always look at giving people second chances because we got second chances. I don't think I would be where I am today if it wasn't for Housing Hope giving me a chance and giving my daughter a chance. Stable housing, I feel like, is the major component and piece of people getting on their feet, especially people that came from dark places like I came from.
The help our residents need, like Stephanie and Mel, is temporary. Sometimes it's called a hand up. The typical stay in our housing and services program is about 2.5 years. And the change that these residents experience is permanent. For what you are doing, what we are doing for these families lasts them a lifetime. We are now in this COVID-19 pandemic, and we're experiencing conditions here that were unimaginable just a couple of months ago. The loss and anguish is awful and it's heartbreaking. And yet, through this time, we are seeing the very best in people come forward. Our first responders and medical service professionals are healing us, risking their lives in doing so. Our governments are stepping forward aggressively to protect us. We see volunteers doing so many things to help, making masks, providing gowns, making face protection equipment, delivering meals. They are doing so much to care for us. And yes, our nonprofits are stepping up in ways that are serving those that need help the most. Housing Hope is carrying forward our work in creative and safe ways. We are staying in contact with our residents frequently, using whatever means that we can find. It is Facebook and phone and text and Zoom and Skype and FaceTime and whatever means we can find to safely communicate and help our residents. We listen to them, we understand them, and we help them. And whatever assistance they need, we provide, or we connect them with the resources to give them that help. Some of our philanthropic partners have stepped forward at this time in extraordinary ways. On Friday, we received a message that one had given us $75,000 in unrestricted support to help us at this time. And then Monday morning, another called with $50,000 in unsolicited support. And this event, you heard John describe our sponsorships. Our sponsorships have remained strong, even at a time when many of them are hurting themselves. I am not going to dwell on how we've been hurt, but we have. Our residents have been unable to pay their rent in many cases. Here we are in Kindred Kitchen that is closed, and next door, Renew Works is temporarily closed as well. This is revenue that we rely upon for our daily operations. Some of our friends and best supporters are simply unable to provide support at this time. And perhaps you are one of those. This is not a time when you can offer support. And I want to tell you, that's okay. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Keep yourself, keep your families safe. But perhaps you are one that can provide extraordinary support at this extraordinary time. And I believe that if you can, you will. I want to thank you for being here. I got to tell you, I am so looking forward to being with you again, in person, face to face, hopefully very soon.
Thanks, Fred. I want to reiterate just how important all of us are in this process. The sponsors, critical levels of support are provided. The large donors that Fred mentioned, we need those donations as well. And finally, any gift that we receive tonight at any level will be greatly appreciated and put to good use. Together, we can make a difference. Remember that each gift of $250 or more will get you an entry into the $25 gift certificate for Kindred Kitchen. Well worth it. Last call for thank yous. Let's thank our guest speakers who took the time out of their busy days to record those messages, and of course the sponsors and attendees tonight. If you want to share this video, you can go to housinghope.org/Stone Soup. Send it to your friends, send it to your family. Let's see if we can generate support from around the country for what we're doing here tonight. We look forward to seeing you in person again next year.